Last week I hit y'all with logical reasons that to reject evolution. Now, and I also gave you the 6 types of evolution there are. It's important that you know what we're talking about because there are actually 6 different types of evolution. There's only one that's ever been observed, and it's microevolution, okay, which is minute changes within the kind. So dogs, how many dogs do you have? There's how many breeds of dogs? There used to be a certain number. Now there's like choco-weenie doodles and stuff like that. So those are variations within a kind. What kind of animal is it? It's a dog, but it's a poodle. That's a variation within a kind. That's observable. We've seen it. The other 5 forms of evolution have never truly been observed. And scientists, if being honest, have to tell you that. So I gave you in the logical reasons. All I did was appeal to your mind, and I'm going to go deeper with that. Like, I won't do it tonight, but how do we measure star distances from starlight? Using trigonometry and other methods, and I'm going to show you why it just seems strange. We talked about origin of life, origin of the cosmos, and those different types of evolution that they don't have anything to hold on to yet. Now, the 3 big ones I gave you to reject it on a logical standpoint, okay, I dealt with the logical reasons. We're going to appeal to the mind. And I gave you the 3 bridges that no evolutionist can cross. Those are 3 questions they cannot answer. I'm not telling you that they will not. They cannot answer these 3 questions. Origin of life, fixity of species, and second law of thermodynamics. Now, first one, origin of life, they say that life arose from spontaneous generation, meaning there was a pool of scum or something, lightning struck, basically atoms formed, and a single-cell organism. Now, hear me out. This is why this is important. We all grew from a one single-cell organism. Now, if that is true, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, if that's true, there should be plenty of record of that. Okay? There's a lot of changes from a single cell to you, and not to mention the other complexity of life that we see. So the first one is origin of life. They have no proof. They can't answer that. The second one is the law of biogenesis, number 2. Law of biogenesis, or the fixity of DNA, which says that DNA is fixed. It cannot change in between kinds. This is their law. This is the law of biogenesis, means that DNA cannot vary from one kind to another. DNA is set and it's specific, meaning there's no way that a banana can become a monkey. Okay? There's no way that a fish can become a frog. That's the law of biogenesis. They have, and I told you last week, there are 0 transitional forms in the fossil records. What I mean by that is they say, okay, this snail became this frog, but they have 0 record of that really happening. No transitional record forms at all. And there are those that will be skeptical because your whole life you've seen it in the books. Most of the stuff that are in textbooks have already been proven to be false, and all you have to do is do a baseline study to see that. You do a baseline study on this stuff where it's been proven to be a hoax, but it's already there. So they have no transitional transitional forms in the fossil record. So this snail became a frog, but there's no fossil evidence of one being in transition from snail to a frog. An amoeba became an astronaut, but there's no fossilized anything showing the difference there. And I said last week, they're not looking for a missing link. The whole chain is missing. And I'm kind of going to show you that tonight. There's a Smithsonian biologist he's quoted saying this. He said, there's no evidence that would show man developing step by step from lower forms of life. There is nothing to show that man was ever in any way connected with the monkeys, not the band, the actual critters. Man appeared suddenly and substantially in the form that he is in today. There are no such thing as missing links. So far as concerning the major groups of animals, the creationists appear to have the best argument. Understand the last line there. What's he say? The creationists seem to have the best argument, so meaning he ain't one. He is not one. But yet he sees the best argument. Up until Darwin's book, the logical explanation, the only one that science had to stand on, the only one that had anything to go on, they said the theological stance on this, creation stance, is the only one that has any weight to it at all. So then you get to the third one is the second law of thermodynamics that simply says energy can never be destroyed. It just becomes less available for further work as it unravels. You all become part of the force, basically, okay? But so energy energy isn't destroyed, but it becomes less available for further work as it unravels, meaning a pile of bricks is never going to become a home on its own. You're never going to put a pile of bricks there and just let it sit there and it become a home by itself. And all this that we're going to do tonight, to be your first fill-in, is tied to a scientific law called the Law of Causation, or the Law of First Cause. Your word is first. I hope it's on there. I don't have one of them with me. I was kind of rushed. I was in 7 meetings while I was doing this. Hi, Chris. It wasn't your fault, though. Yeah, even though you were in there. Yes. Oh my goodness. It should say Devolution Part 2. Yeah, we need, if you don't have Part 2. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's it. Okay, that's it. That's it. All right, call in. I'm gonna need a new team. Everybody's fired. I'm fired. Apparently, because it all rolls to me. It's okay. You can be sorry later. Just love me right now. Just love me right now, Lane. Help me. Okay, good. First, the word is first. If you actually have the right paper, the word is first. First cause. Causation. We got it. We better make it fun, or it's just everybody's going to be tense, right? So it is the law of first cause. This is a scientific law of causation. Everything is tied to it. Let me explain to you. You have two logical choices. Choice number one, your first word right there, matter. Either matter is eternal. That means everything has always existed and it's had no beginning. Matter is eternal. That's option right here, though. If matter is eternal, that means that the universe is both eternal and it is self-existing. The universe itself, eternal, self-existing. But we see, no rational person thinks this way because we see the universe is not eternal. We see it winding down like a clock constantly. It degrades over time. So everything we observe is in a state of decay. Everywhere around you, it's in a state of decay. Nothing lasts forever. The second law of thermodynamics completely eliminates the possibility of eternal matter. Now, hear me out. I need everybody in the room to hear me on this. I am not trying to get you to believe that I'm not trying to change your heart on certain matters. I just want you to learn by the end of this that if what I'm teaching you is considered religion, what they teach in school right now is the same thing because it is strictly a philosophical idea. That is it. I have people that will come up against me on this because they've heard it their whole life and you're just a kooky Christian, and I'd love to debate them because I will smoke them with all humility now. Because I know I've studied it. I've looked into it a lot. I have doctors that I'm working with on it. So if matter is eternal, why does my car rust? Why does the wood rot on a house if matter is eternal? Why do people get tooth decay? Why does our bodies grow weak and feeble as we get older if matter is eternal? Why do your pants wear thin and your shirts wear out? Why do your socks and underwear get holes in them? I don't want to know why, but anyway, you know what I mean. If matter is eternal, leave the first 4 words. Go bother somebody else. In the beginning, God what? He created everything. So everything about who we are boils down to those words. And taking them, because if those words are false, then the rest of the Bible's false. If those words are a lie, then there's other lies. So either you accept it or you throw the rest of it away because you can't pick and choose. We say that about scriptures that are hard about sin, so why not say it about creation too? Or did God lie? God is not a man that he would lie, right? So I think I put it on your paper that it's obvious that matter's not eternal. Okay, we see that. So the only possible choice out of the two is there's an eternal creator God. And what's funny is as I have all these first cause listed on your paper, I think I listed them, he is the first God. The first cause, Elohim, means the creator. Okay, at its root, these words are God. At their very root, I give you some meanings for them. The first cause of a limitless space must be something that's infinite. So to be the first thing that causes a limitless space must be an infinite being. So Elohim is the everlasting God. Okay? The first cause of endless time must be eternal. Yahweh, the I am, the self-existent I am. First cause of boundless energy must be omnipotent. El Shaddai, God Almighty. The first cause of infinite complexity must be omniscient. El Dea, God of knowledge, omniscient, all-knowing. And there the Bible tells us he's the God of knowledge. The first cause of love would have to be loving. He's who? He's Abba, Father, Daddy. And the first cause of life must be something that's living. And I would have put Jehovah Shammah, or Yahweh Shammah, but I put Jehovah Shammah. It just means the Lord is there, because you can't be there if you're not living. So he is the first cause of all causes, of everything. He's the first cause. So therefore, if you look at the foundational law of all true science is the law of causation. And if you look at that, then it forces us to admit that the universe had to be brought into existence, by a great, uncaused, self-existing first cause. Everything we had to be brought into existence by a great, uncaused, self-existing first cause. That first cause has to be infinite, he has to be eternal, he has to be omnipotent, omniscient, loving, and living. Everything that the Bible tells us that God is. And I'm sorry, Moses wasn't a great scientist. He didn't know that, in 6,000 years, 4,000 years, we're going to be talking about this. It just perfectly explains all that So there's a British scientist most of you have heard of, Sir Fred Hoyle. He's the guy that coined the term Big Bang in the Big Bang Theory. Not the show, the theory, okay? So, but here's the deal. He coined the term making fun of the theory. As an astrophysicist, he coined the term Big Bang to make fun of it. He didn't believe in it. He said it was irrational. And that just the irrationality of the evolutionary hypothesis itself is silly. So this is what he did. Dr. Hoyle conducted an experiment, computerized experiment study. And this was a study of the chances that the first living cell could have developed by random process in some primordial ooze, like they say. And then he calculated that the chances of random chemical shuffling in some soup that could then produce these complex life forms, produce the basic enzyme, Let me get this right. Let me say that when I'm getting ahead of myself. Calculated that the chances of a random chemical shuffling in some primordial soup that could produce the complex basic enzymes in one cell, just one cell of life, it's 1 in 10 to the power of 40. So that's 1 in 10 with 40 zeros after it. So that's almost like the chances. What's cool about this is the chances of one man fulfilling the prophecies that Jesus fulfilled in a 3-year period of time it's actually 10 to the power of 147. Okay, which is 10 to the power of 147 is a humongous number. That's 147 zeros. So that is the way that they talk about that is if you took the state of Texas and you buried it 2 feet deep in quarters, and you drop somebody blind out of a helicopter and they pick up the 1 marked quarter in all of them right away the first time. That's the chances. Okay, so 10 to the power of 40. Okay, 1 in 10 to the power of 40 is not it's different, but I would say roughly. What are the chances? So the chances of life coming that way, there are something like 3 trillion different things that have to be, or 3 billion, different things that have to be in perfect unison on the planet for somehow life to spontaneously come into existence. Things that are never ordered that way. So Hoyle went on to say this. He went on to say that there's about as much chance of evolution being true as a hurricane going through a junkyard and building a Boeing 747. It's still said today, but it's his quote. So when you hear people say it, know that it came from him. I stated earlier when we were talking about the fixity of DNA, the law of biogenesis, that we can argue our point on this by simply realizing that we've never discovered fossilized proof of evolutionary transitions, ever, from one form to another. Meaning that if we and every other life form on this planet evolve from one single cell organism, as evolution states, there should be mountains of evidence of that. Mountains of it. Showing the transition from one to another. This one had no legs, and that one has nubs, and then that one has a little longer nubs, and then that one has legs. We should see that. Now, all we have found is a few strange creatures, which there's a doctor that does talks on this. He calls them strange ninja turtles, or mutant ninja turtles. And I don't know if he was trying to be funny, but it's a little dated. But they were. There's different amphibians and reptiles that they found that they thought, oh, look, it's a transitional species. Because it's the first one we found, and this one has a nub instead of a fin or something, whatever. But as they got to studying further, what they found out is each 3 or 4 transitional species they thought they found in the fossilized record have proven, as they've studied it, they have proved to be their own set, active, reproducing species of their own. Not a transitional species. Okay, understand, transitional species will not be something that is set, active, reproducing, and making more of its kind like that over and over and over again for generations. So once they keep finding more of these transitional fossils, they realize, oh, we just discovered a new species. That's all it was. And every time it's proven to be true. So that leaves us with some really big questions to answer. And not to mention, when we think on the universe and the Big Bang and all that, more questions arise. Why are there so many questions? If you can imagine us, I didn't get to picture the box, did I, Lena? Okay. If we're living in the confines of the universe, because we are, aren't we? Right? Most of us are. Some of you probably aren't, but most of us are. If we're living in the confines of the universe, and we're trying to discover the origin of the universe, and we're living in the confines of time and space, and we're trying to discover the origin of time and space, it's basically the same thing of us being locked inside of a box. Okay, let me grab something. This will work. Okay, let's say this had a top. Okay, well, let's just do it this way. It's basically like us being in that, but trying to figure out what's on the outside of that. We know there's an outside because we're on the inside. So if we're on the inside, there's got to be an outside. So now we're trying to figure out who created the box that we're in. To do that, we have to get to the outside, but it's impossible. It's a different dimension. It's not possible. So we have no idea what's on the outside of the box. But we do know there's an outside. That's it. And we know there's something beyond us because we're here. But that's it. We know there's another dimension. There's got to be another dimension. Inside the box is time and space. That's what we're in. Outside the box must be eternity and infinity. If time and space are on the inside, then eternity and infinity are on the outside. Now, the only way, like I said, we'll ever be able to actually prove what or who made the box is to step outside of said box. And we can't do that. That's impossible. But we know there's a dimension beyond our observable realities. We know that. And I do believe if we had the possibility, the capability to travel faster than the speed of light for a set amount of time, and we could reach the edge of our known universe, at that point, all physics do break down, and we would be in another dimension. I mean, officially, we would officially be in another dimension if you could actually reach what they consider what they think to be the edge of our universe and went past that. I mean, we can't get past it. We can barely got past the moon. We're out of our solar system now, but not with people. And never past the solar system, past the moon with people, but we can't. So we're trying to figure all this out by being stuck inside the box. There's a lot of complexity to that. We know there's another dimension, though. So I got an illustration. This is Bob and Eddie. Here's the deal. Now, Bob and Eddie, I'm going to try to help you out. This is how evolutionists and how these scientists work. Bob and Eddie, go ahead and give me Bob and Eddie. Okay, Bob and Eddie are two alien critters. I know it's hard to read, so I'm going to read it for you. Now, here's the deal. They're both allowed to visit Earth, but Bob can only visit for several minutes each year. Eddie's allowed to remain here and observe. They gather as much data as they can on Earth for 100 years, 100 of our years. But we're going to look at their data on automobiles. And we're going to look at the facts that they come up with first, and then we're going to look at their conclusions to those facts. So give me the facts. Here are the facts. That's a horse and buggy. It says, as to their methods of transportation, we observed that early on the humans would get about with four-wheeled vehicles drawn by four-footed creatures. Okay? After just a couple more Earth years passed, we noticed a dramatic change. The earlier four-footed creatures were no longer present, yet the vehicles still moved. Ooh. Good evolution. These new moving creatures, which moved by themselves, were more noisy contraptions and even more foul-smelling than the other critters. As the years passed, the vehicle structures maintained similar basic form. Nevertheless, they changed gradually in several other ways. Some, they became sleeker, less box-like, faster. Some had had tops that could be removed. Some were just awesome. That's a Hellcat. If you don't know what that is, some were just great, I'm sure. But there's a few that were here for just a brief time, mercifully, thankfully. If you don't know what that is, kids, that's the same thing as a bean, pretty much. All right. Although there were many more types as the years went by, they began to look alike, and the earliest species weren't observed anywhere. Now, here's the interpretations Bob and Eddie got. They both observed and agreed to those facts we just put up there. But when they give their report explaining what they saw and why they believe what happened actually happened, their interpretations take on a different look. So give it to me. Give me Bob's report. Bob says the early simple vehicles with the hairy four-footed pullers were probably victims of some severe environmental trauma and died out. Only the most fit mutations of the time must have survived, and those were apparently the ones without the bulky, insufficient critter attachments. Considering, though, the disappearance of the critter attachments would seem to be the power source for the simple vehicles, it seems that, though, through the process of dramatic events in time, the four-legged creature power sources evolved with the four-wheeled creatures, bringing the power source and the compartment into one species. Brilliant, brilliant, Bob. Okay. After that quick dramatic change came the long, slow process in which the vehicles changed slowly over many generations, evolving through random mutations, the traits that made them even stronger and better able to survive. As a result of time, chance, mutations, and natural selections, Earthlings were left with the fast, efficient beasts they now have. It's now a matter of time for us to work out all the details of how this happened. Thank you, Bob. Okay, Eddie says this. All the vehicles from the early critter-drawn versions to the later, faster models were of the same basic design. They all had wheels, similar devices to help them change direction, a compartment to help transport the humans, ways of seeing at night, similar ways of stopping, similar energy sources, similar waste products, and so on and so on. They all showed evidence of a common design. I also had no evidence of one vehicle becoming another. No in-between vehicles. Each vehicle is there in a fully functional way. The facts and my experience in real life tell me the following. When I see a lot of objects, all similar, all complex, all ordered, all with immediate purpose and function, there has always been an intelligent being behind it. Conclusion, some intelligent being, at the moment I suspect humans, I'm pretty sure after observing this for a little while, he decided it wasn't it. But anyway, had designed and created the vehicles. The vehicles had changed over time, to be sure, but it was no accident. It's now a matter of time to work out how and why the humans may have done this. Eddie. They agreed on the facts. Their interpretations are totally different. Totally different. Now, the reason I do that is to show you, one, that's what happens, but two, did you see what evidence that I'm going to give you over the next number of weeks? The evidence points you to one conclusion, and that's the reasonable faith that the Bible is accurate. So that we do face questions. So tonight, really, as I keep going here, I did the logical thing. Here's the logic last week. I gave you some pointers on that this week. But now I really want to appeal to your heart for a second, and then to your spirit, man. The moral reasons. There are logical reasons why I reject the hypothesis, the theory of evolution. Logical reasons, I gave you those. Moral reasons, though, I need you to hear me on this. Evolution is immoral, and it is responsible for a lot of the immorality we see around us. And I will prove that to you, but Jesus said, by their fruits you shall know them, right? By your fruits. So he was speaking of false prophets. So let's look at the fruits our society has received from this lie we've swallowed. Okay? Evolution has produced Nazism and racism. No, I couldn't have done that. I mean, okay. It all starts with Darwin. Okay? Darwin in his book, The Origin of Species, and I'm gonna read it this year, Kristen. I got the guts to read that one part. Okay? But it started with Darwin. Let me give you a quote from Darwin that you're not going to find in textbooks or school books real fast. This is from his book that you're not going to find. It says this: Charles Darwin, the great father of evolution, says, at some future period, not very far distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate the savage races of man and will replace them throughout the world. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider. Even the Caucasian and some apes, as low as the baboon, instead of now between the Negro, Australian, and the gorilla. I need you to read that and catch what he is saying. It is super racist. That's not a quote from David Duke. But never mind. He ran for office in Louisiana. He was a Klan member and did not win because of that. So that's from Darwin. That's from Charles Darwin. And I wonder if, like our Church of God in Christ and our brothers in the AG in that form, in that ethnic group, what they think about this if they were told this too. So Darwin was one of the original definitions of racist. He calls black people a lower life form. And he puts them after baboon and apes. There's a placement there on purpose. And then he says, not only, he says that they have not yet evolved to the point which Caucasians have. I don't know, I don't burn as easy as y'all do, but I burn in the sun. Do you? No, thank you. That's if there's evolution, never mind. It's going to go up, not down. He infers that they're going to be exterminated someday because of the higher intelligence and evolution of Caucasians, of an Aryan race. So we referred to his book as Origin of Species last week, and I did it just a minute ago too. Do y'all know that that's just an abbreviation for his book? It's not just Origin of Species, that it's got a longer title. The full title of his book is Origin of Species, or the Preservation of the Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Races, not species, races. Should we be surprised that Darwin's one of his greatest fans was Adolf Hitler? He was one of his Mein Kampf. He talks about, he loved this man's writing. Because here's the deal, if Darwin's correct, okay, and humans are the ultimate product of brute survival of the fittest, then who's to say that one's race is not superior to another? Yes, sir. Exactly. I don't. That's a good point. Yeah. And we need their speed and their metabolism. I got you, girl. But really, that was the line of thinking that led Hitler to be convinced that he was of a superior race and that he could breed a superior race and commit genocide and kill millions of people. Imagine, just for a second, not for long, imagine you're Hitler. That's horrible, but the survival of a favored race is only one small step away from the dominion of a favored race. Just dominion over the world of that favored race. And millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people have been butchered because of the philosophy of the survival of the fittest. And he is accredited by Adolf Hitler for this thought. Darwin is. Only the strongest survive. What's the song? Red, yellow, black, and white, they're all precious in His sight. God is no respecter of persons. God is no respecter of persons. I wonder if upon Darwin's death and Hitler's death, did Jesus show up in all his Israeli olive skinness and go, surprise, And my wife, I wrote that, I was writing that down, and I said that to her the other day. She said something that hit me, and she said, truthfully, if he did show up, it would be in his sadness because they really thought themselves greater than another. Like, okay, you be the spiritual one, fine. But she's right. She's right. He would, if he showed up, it was in sadness. So, and we talk about abortion a lot in church right now because it's a horrid thing that's happened in this country, but what about euthanasia? Not kids in China, youth in Asia, okay? Y'all know who Jack Kevorkian is. Some of you do. All right. It's, took you a second there? You okay? Euthanasia is already active in many, many parts of the world. It kind of is active in the United States. It really sort of is, in a way, when it comes to the whole pull the plug thing. It sort of is. But it's a byproduct. It's just another byproduct of this devolution theory stuff, that life goes along with evolution. It's a philosophy that just continues to erode away at the fabric and the morals of our society. And think about it. Think about 40 years ago, no one would have stood for what Jack Kevorkian did. 50 years ago, no one would have let him just kill people who says, I'm ready to die, doc. Okay, well, here, take this. You'll be dead in 30 minutes. No one would have stood for that. Now, I mean, is he legally practicing now, I think? Or unless he's dead now, I don't know. But he, at one point, was released to do all that. So, y'all know who Mussolini is? He was the fascist in Italy. He believed in evolution, and he believed that nothing sped up the process more among humans than war. So does that surprise you that he was a part of the Second World War? A big part of it? I reject the evolution theory because of moral reasons too. Because I see what it has built. It has built Nazism or racism in the scale that millions have been killed. But it also produced, I think this is a fill-in for you, communism. It might be communism. How did it build communism? It built communism. Karl Marx, the father of communism. He read Darwin's book. He said it was the turning point in his life. Karl Marx said Darwin's work, Origin of Species, was a turning point in his life. And he told his wife, I have now discovered the scientific foundation for communism. It's all there. He was so enamored with Darwin's work that he offered to dedicate his book, the Tenets of Communism, basically, to Charles Darwin. I want to dedicate my book to you. The only reason Darwin's wife talked him out of doing it, but he thanked him and he's mentioned. So there are present-day leaders that still follow Marx, Darwin, racist ways. We have a lot of Marxist people running parts of our country right now. That's the moral backbone of what they stand on. You understand? That's what I'm trying to give you. So the C is humanism. It's also produced humanism. Now, there's a much lengthier definition for this, but humanism is basically this, they reject the idea or the belief in anything supernatural, any supernatural being such as God. They produce the greatness of man and the goodness of man. And they don't believe in an afterlife, so they focus on happiness in this life, living my best life now, that stuff. As a result, they believe that people should make the most of their lives while on earth, and humans are at heart good people, and we're just good. That's what we're going to be, and we're the greatest of all creation at the moment. Darwin's theory of natural selection, what it did, it offered the naturalist or the humanist movement that did not have a stance. Understand, they did not have a stance at this point. It offered them an explanation for what's called the plurality of species. The plurality of species, the best way for me to describe it really quickly is this. The tree of life must start with a trunk, which means one cell, but then it branches off into everything you see today. The humanists could not explain that with science, and they were stuck. Darwin offered them an explanation, and that weakened what was then the very strong, very, very highly convincing theological argument for an existence of God. At that point, scientists that did not even believe in God they took that as the biggest truth they know, because no science points to anything else. Darwin's theory just implied that humans were another species, which is a contradiction of the biblical viewpoint, that we are something more than just animals. We have a soul. So secular humanism is based upon evolution, firmly upon it. In 1981, the Humanist Association named Carl Sagan Humanist of the Year for his 10-part series on evolution. It's probably you've seen it. It's called The Cosmos. I love Carl Sagan's work. I love astronomy. I love science. I love cosmology. But he was named Humanist of the Year because he was all on evolution and denial of God. The first 2 points of their manifesto, Humanist Manifesto, deal solely with evolution. It's the foundation of who they are. D, You may not like this, so your fill-in is going to be sexual. I made you write the word sexual in church. Sexual. Anyway, so I'm sorry. It's a song. It's just what I got onto. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to be singing that song in church. I don't know what got on. Lord save me. Help me, Jesus. I'm a horrible fan. Sexual revolution. How did evolution start the sexual revolution? How is that possible? Y'all know what that is? Most of you know what it is. Sexual revolution that occurred. Evolution at least played a significant a role in it. Okay. There's a guy named Julian Huxley, Sir Julian Huxley. Now, he's the grandson of Thomas Huxley. Thomas Huxley was the colleague of Darwin. They called him Darwin's bulldog because he would jump on anyone that came against him. Julian Huxley, the grandson, became the head of UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization. He was one of the leading evolutionists of his day. But when he was talking on The Origin of Species, Darwin's book, which sold out the first day it was in print, by the way. It sold out its first day in print. This is what Huxley said. They said, I didn't put it on there. It says, why did we all jump for his book? Well, I suppose we all jumped at the book because, now let me stop right there. Why do you think they jumped at the book? Why do you think? Scientific facts revealed, maybe? Or overwhelming evidence or compelling and convincing arguments? He says, I suppose we all jumped at the book because the idea of a God interfered with our sexual exploits and morality. God's messing with my sex life. This is the head of UNESCO saying this. We didn't jump at the book because it was great scientific facts revealed. Or you believe that? I will by the end of this whole series, if you haven't seen it by then, I don't know what to tell you. And test what I'm saying. Please take what I'm saying. I'm giving you papers with part of the study on there for you to go prove me wrong. Have fun with that. But anyway, it's a convenient philosophy, isn't it? Get rid of God. It's a convenient. So my question is, are these men objective scientists or are they con men, great con men? Because even the quote I gave you last week of the biologist, the Harvard biologist, Nobel Prize winning biologist who said that evolution has been proven wrong 120 years ago by Louis Pasteur. But that leaves only the existence of a God. But I don't want a God messing with my life, so I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible. Now we have this. Why did we jump at the book? Because we didn't want them messing with our stuff. Yes, sir. Yeah. 1:18 and 32, the 18 through 32 on your paper, so you can look it up, because it talks about this, God showing his anger from heaven against sinful, wicked people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. And it goes on, and I want you to read that tonight. I'd love for you to. So if I have time, I'll come back to it, but I don't think I will. I reject evolution for logical reasons and for moral reasons, and I'm only giving you a teaspoon of it because I don't have hours to do a lecture. Logical reasons, moral reasons, but I also reject it for theological reasons, for spiritual reasons too. Now, theological reasons. I have appealed to your head, to your logic. I have appealed to your heart. Now I want to appeal to your heart again, but your heart as a child of God. Your other heart, your soul, your mind, will, and emotions. The heart we talked about for 8 weeks. Heart. Evolution, here's a fill-in, is the direct opposite. The opposite is your word of what the word of God teaches. It's totally in opposition to what God teaches. You'll find something from last week on your notes that say about the same thing. Anybody know who H.G. Wells was? Okay, good. Some people know he's a historian. Was a historian. Anyway, H.G. Wells. He said this. He said, if all animals and man evolved, then there was no first parents, no paradise, no fall. And if there's no fall, then the entire historic fabric of Christianity, the story of the first sin, the reason for atonement collapses like a house of cards. Let me go back to that. Either you accept those first 4 words or you don't accept any of it. Romans 5 talks about the last Adam, Jesus Christ. Why? Why is he the last Adam? Because Adam, we're born in Adam, as in Adam, we all die. In Christ, we will all be made alive. He's the last Adam. Our entire world has bought into this dishonesty, this deceit of all these evolutionists that are truly practicing weird science. And, well, but they're scientists, and yeah, I get that, but it's weird science. It's not science. It is not science. I most certainly a fact it is a religion. It's a mindset, and it's a religion that kills God to get rid of him, so their exploits can be done. It is a religious, philosophical belief that uses scientific terminology and methods to try to prove that belief. That's what it does. So what I get to do is I get to use scientific methods to prove creation, and there's more weight that hits on creation than there does for them. There's none in their category. And I barely touched it. There's 4 basic ingredients for the scientific method, and I kind of went over them last week, but very quickly. The first basic ingredient scientific method is observation. One must be able to observe the object in an investigation. If we're talking about this basket right here, we have to be able to see the basket in order to have the scientific method move forward. The second thing is hypothesis. We formulate a hypothesis and then set out to verify that hypothesis through testing. So you have to be able to test the hypothesis. Which brings us to point number 3, is your fill-in testing. This is how a hypothesis is either verified or discredited. If you ever did a science fair project as a kid, you had to have a hypothesis. Which battery lasts longer? Duracell, Energy, whatever you did as a kid. Did you prove your hypothesis to be true? Or yeah, okay. So you test it, but it has to be tested in a controlled environment. Or you have to repeat the results. You can't just have something one time and it be set. You have to repeat. It has to have repeatable results. To prove the hypothesis is true, you must be able to repeat the results in a controlled environment so those results can be observed, measured, recorded, and actually studied by a peer and let them do it as well. So it's not just you. Observation, hypothesis, testing, repeatable results. I can tell you 100% for fact, I am a man of God. I am his under shepherd of this church, sitting on the altar of this church. I can tell you that the theory of evolution does not pass at all 3 of the 4 basic ingredients of the scientific method. It doesn't. Can evolution be observed? No, not in the sense we're talking about at all. Not in those first 5 types of evolution. Were you there to observe it? No, you wasn't. Can evolution be tested? Answer is no, you cannot test evolution. Can evolution be proven by repeatable results? No, you obviously can't repeat what you can't even produce the first time. Now, you can say the same thing. Well, can you prove to me you're God? Can you do this? Personally, for me, no, I can't. I'm not trying to say that I can personally do that. What I'm saying is evolution is a philosophy, it's a religion, it's not science. Because that's what you would call us. Anybody in the world would call us just a religion, a philosophy. Yet we have more proof that backs up our belief system than modern day science has for theirs. Sad. I mean, it's great, but it's sad that the world's where it is. So the truth is, evolutionists never begin with evidence and then move towards a conclusion, right? No, they begin with the conclusion and then they try to find evidence that'll piece their conclusion together. That's what they do. And too often they're willing to twist and distort the facts related to the evidence to make their point shine through. And it's been proven as I close up tonight. I'm going to prove that to you. They will twist the facts, they will lie, and they will make stuff up to arrive at their pre-existing conclusion. Some have been so hard-pressed to find evidence to support their little theories that they've been so willing to actually fabricate, to make false evidence to prove their conditions. And let me do that right now. The first one that came up is Nebraska Man. Give me a picture of Mr. Nebraska Man. There's Mr. Nebraska Man right there. It's a tooth that was found in Nebraska. This is the Scopes monkey trial happened because of this. Can evolution be taught in schools? Does God get taught in schools? The Scopes monkey trial, the science, sort of. That falsehood right there got evolution legally put into the textbooks and into schools. Even when it was proved false afterwards, it already had its weight and its bearing, and it stayed in. Now, then we get to Neanderthal. You hear about, he's got his own TV show. Watch History Channel. They got a whole thing on Neanderthal. Now, it's not thal, it's tall. However you say it, I don't care. Now, give me the first pic of Mr. Nee. That's what they found, by the way. That's the Neanderthal they found right there. All them bones, all 6 of them. Now, he's still in textbooks right now. He's got his own show on the History Channel, how they lived beside humans. Give me a second pic. Hey, I know men that look like that, okay? That don't look no different than a human. I know. I mean, you ever seen my father? I mean, we got them noses, okay? And I've been told I was human my whole life. So anyway, see what their deal was. They see a man walks on 2 legs, right? But apes walk on 4. Man on 2, apes on 4. But the Neanderthal skeleton was bent over and kind of hunched, and they said, "Wow, look, he's bent over. This is man. This is it. He's going from 4 to 2 legs." 50 years. I'm serious. 50 years ago, they proved that it was an elderly arthritic man. That the bones were just an elderly. As you get older, your bones get more dense, right? They will increase, and you will hunch over. It just happens. He's still in textbooks, proven wrong 50 years ago. So why do we have to keep false information in textbooks? There's a man that I study from, a doctor, a phenomenal man of God, who is a phenomenal apologetics in creation, who went to prison because he refused to pay taxes if they were going to teach religion in school. Now, he's a Christian man, but he said, "You don't let me teach my religion in schools, so why do you get to teach your religion in school?" And he was against paying taxes for that. They waited years and years and years. He had a very large ministry, where a creationist museum, and they decided to they took him to court and filed charges against his business. It was a 501c3 nonprofit ministry, and got him for $8 million in back taxes and put him in jail and ruined his life. He's out now, and guess what? He's got another one. He's going again, but it was horrible things for his wife. I mean, it messed his family up. So now we have the Peking man, right? Give me that first picture. Oh, there he is. See all the stuff that's brown? That's what they found. Everything else they made up, except for the 2 teeth. They found those 2. Now, he was supposedly 500,000 years old. Give me the next picture. There he is. That's what they made from those little pieces of bone. They made that. Okay, once again, I think I know people with that beard and those eyebrows. But here's the deal. Where those bones were found, the little 10, there were 10 skeletons, human skeletons were found right there in the same layer with this guy, along with crushed monkey skulls and tools, human tools. But they decided, no, that one must have been different. But they must have just been hanging out with the 10 humans that, according to evolution, weren't alive back then. Anyway, then we have the Piltdown man. Okay, these are all the missing links that are taught still today. That's what they found. The dark brown is the pieces that they found. That's the Piltdown man. In 1912, there's a guy named Arthur Smith Woodward. He was director of Natural History Museum in London. And another guy named Charles Dawson, who was a physician and an amateur paleontologist. They discovered this gravel pit in what's called Piltdown, which is in Sussex, England. So they have this theologian with them, with Deschardin, a French dude apparently. They discovered this skull that appeared to be human and had a jawbone which appeared to be quite ape-like on the other side of it. I'm sorry, I put the wrong picture on. Appeared to be quite ape-like, except for the fact that it did not have any large teeth that you would get from apes in the jaw area. Didn't have the large molars or anything. It was brown looking and appeared to be very, very old. So they said again, 500,000 years old. It was hailed as the premier missing link. We have that this is it. The other ones were not, but this is it. As usual, with imagination and plaster of Paris, they constructed a race of ape-like men out of those pieces of bone. Constructed the whole thing. For 40 years, millions and millions of students in America and around the world looked at pictures of the Piltdown man as this ape man in textbooks teaching that he was the link from then to us. Give me the second picture. That's what he looked like, apparently, in the textbooks. I mean, bruh. Anyway, I'm just saying, he looks, anyway, okay. 40 years later, after the invention of the fluoride test, okay, scientists realized that the skull wasn't 500,000 years old. It was about 2,000 years old. And the jaw was only 50 years old. Then they examined the teeth under a microscope very clearly, and they could see that the teeth had been filed down with a metal file very carefully to resemble human teeth. So the teeth in this jaw had been filed down to look like the shape of a human. And they were brown and they were old looking because they had been stained with iron salts, and then they had been planted in the ground to be found. These men were caught. The whole thing turned out to be a fraud, a practical joke. Reader's Digest ended up threw an article on it called The Great Piltdown Hoax. The last one is Java Man, extinction by coffee. So Java Man, give me the first picture of Java. That's Java Man right there. That's what we got of him. Yep, that's poor thing. He too much Starbucks. Anyway. This is, you may know the word, I'm going to tell you, this is the famous, let me say it right, give me a second, Pithecanthropus. That's this, Pithecanthropus. You've heard it a million times from textbooks and TV, Pithecanthropus. This is the species name that these two bones got. I feel very intellectual when I get to say Pithecanthropus. Pithecanthropus was anyway, I say it enough, I'm going to accidentally say a wrong word, it's going to be bad. So, give me our second, Pithecanthropus really means ape man, but that's what they got out of those two pieces of bone there. Okay, Java man was discovered by a guy named Eugene de Bois, who was Dutch, and he traveled from Holland to Java, halfway around the world and he told people for the single purpose of discovering an ape man. That not sound suspicious? First of all, okay. I mean, I've tried to travel around searching for a job before, couldn't find that, and he brought back what he said was proof, but he wouldn't show the bones to anybody at all. He just had proof. Instead, what he would show them is this plaster of Paris model of the bones that he brought back, but not the real bones. He had found a skull that I showed you and a leg bone. The skull was ape-like and the leg bone was human. What he failed to tell the world a few things, and that's this. Number one, the leg bone was found 100 yards downstream from the skull. They weren't even close to each other. Second thing, at the same site where the ape skull was found, was also found two other skulls, which were obviously human skulls. Now, those two human skulls, he took with him too, but he kept hid under the floorboards of his house. No one could find them. For 26 years, under the floorboard of his house. Because he knew if he admitted he had found human skulls at the same level as Java Man, that his missing link was going to be discredited and all his fame was going to go away. Before he died, he admitted the whole thing. And he even told people that the skull of Java Man was from the remains he found of a large ape. He knew it was the remains, he just took that one piece. But before he admitted it, Java Man was already in textbooks and being taught. Nebraska Man, Neanderthal Man, Peking Man, Piltdown Man, Java Man, all hoaxes, all proven to be hoaxes, every single one of them. And it all points at just how anxious man is to, I guess, make a monkey out of himself. I don't know. But to get rid of God. So the big question is, these are ordinarily very objective scientists who are not easily fooled and deceived. Why did these examples escape thousands and thousands of the best minds in this world? Because evolution isn't a science. It's not a science. It's a philosophy. It's a religion. It's a way to explain God away. And it dispenses with the accountability you need to God. So, of course, it escaped them because it's their belief system. It's their heart. It's their religion. It's called willful ignorance. Listen, you are not an animal. You are not an accident. You did not come from slime. And if you believe that, let me work with you and talk to you, please. God created you in his image. He loves you. He created you for a purpose. He has a destiny for you. Jesus died for you, not just slime. He died for you and has a purpose and a plan for you. And I mean, maybe it's simple faith in God's word. I don't know, but it's faith in God's word. I believe God created all this in 6 literal days. That's the way the Hebrew shows it. That's the way it breaks down to me. That's the way my study has shown. You put the hours of study in and show me something different, I'll look at it. But I believe he did it in 6 literal days. That's creation because that's my God. That's what he can do. Now, there is one more creation, though, that we can't speak of that is not that. It's the new creation of 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. If anything, he created something and allowed it to be recreated. This is just baseline stuff, guys. I haven't even got into the dinosaurs yet. That you've been taught your whole life that dinosaurs lived millions of years before man. Why do we have thousands and thousands of human remains with the dinosaurs that they don't show? Or footprints of humans tracking dinosaurs, fossilizing this right there beside each other. Footprints of humans inside the footprint of dinosaurs. And I'll show those to you. I'll get them to you. They're hard to find and they're hard to come by. Very hard to come by. There's video and picture proof of a paleontologist who found the first set. There's some in South Texas. There's somewhere around here in Texas. I don't know where it is. Glen Rose, Texas, is where the footprint of the human is in the dinosaur track. There was one found before that, and there's video. There was a guy coming to video it and take pictures of it, a creationist too. The paleontologist, he videos him decimating the fossil. He's got a big, big heavy pick, like guard pick, the weighted pick, about 6 foot long. And he is just banging the mess out of the human footprint, and he's video doing the whole thing, getting rid of it, because it messes up their belief system, their theory. So you don't have to take everything. Please don't take everything I'm saying at face value. Go study it. Find yourself. I'll give you my links. I'll tell you what to study. I'll tell you where to go. Go find your own. Don't go to YouTube and listen to some Yahoo there, okay? Because every idiot can get a YouTube channel. I mean, I think I have 2. That should tell you something, right? So, and they can, you go down the rabbit trail, you could be in outer space looking at a round globe, watch 15 minutes of YouTube and believe that thing is flat, even though you're looking at it. So be careful where you go for study. I'm probably going to do this on Facebook to tease, like a teaser for the Devolution series, but there's a very famous atheist that was one of the name Ingersoll. He was with a minister, and they were going to talk in the minister's office, and knowing that he was a firm evolutionist and atheist and didn't believe in creation or God or anything, and on the pastor's desk there was this beautiful